picks up a first down.
And I'm going to go back to, we talked to our friends, Charles Bishop and Neely. They follow Jackson State football and having dinner with them. I mean, they said this team feels like nobody can score 3 times on them. 3 times. He didn't say if it was 3 field goals, 3 touchdowns. Prairie View has scored twice. Touchdown, field goal. That's how good this defense is. And, whoa, they are as good as advertised.
4th best in all of FCS.
It got to get to the point where whoever we're doing the broadcast that week of the game, they're going to have to sit down with y'all because y'all know us better than everybody.
Sure.
And y'all know some of the inside stuff
We do.
that I may not tell them because I don't trust them, but
Sure. Trust us.
okay. Trust y'all.
We appreciate that
We
trust.
appreciate that, Coach.
Much love, baby.
Let's get back to strolling instead of scrolling. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your family.
For 200 years, Montgomery, Alabama has been making history by people who had the courage to stand up for change. Today, this riverfront city has been reborn, embracing the past and looking forward to the future. From the National Memorial for Peace and Justice to the stage of the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, this is where history was and is made. We are proud to call Montgomery home, and together, we can be the change.
When you're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics, there's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him.
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
This is the BCSN Pod Zone, your place for the news, views, and conversations about all things related to HBCU athletics. Here are the BCSN Sports Wrap, Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, Knights of the Round Table, the pregame show, the Carlos Brown Show, the ONG Strike Zone, and more in one place. We are changing the way you consume HBCU sports, one broadcast at a time.
That's right, y'all. The Black College Baseball Championship Series is back. The Black College World Series return May 11th through 15th to a place where so much black history has been made. Montgomery, Alabama, to the home of the Montgomery Biscuits. That's right. Riverwalk Stadium, downtown Montgomery, Alabama. The cries have been heard, and Black College Championships LLC is here to answer the call. No longer will the poll determine our champion, as the top baseball teams from NCAA Division II and NAIA meet on the field for Black College baseball supremacy.
he picks up a first down.
And I'm going to go back.
And he picks up a first down.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavill, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavill with Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike is back out on assignment. In fact, it looks like he'll be on assignment all week long. Mike, where you at? Where you at? Man, it's getting good in here. We got championships to select. We got champions to be named. Man, it's good. It's good. So welcome to episode 238 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports from institutions large and small. From the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KCOH 1230 AM with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Professor Bishop, how you doing today?
Doing well. I tell you what, Houston this past weekend was a hotbed of basketball. Enjoyed every minute of it. It's March 1. It's tournament time.
Yeah, it is. It's tournament time. Put your dancing shoes on because somebody is going to get invited. Other will be left at home. Mm-hmm. With that being said, Professor Drew, what are your thoughts?
Valley? We talk about Valley? I had to throw my inner Mike Washington in there for y'all since he's not here. And I guess we're not going to be talking about Valley because they're the only team not invited to that we know is not going to be invited to the SWAC basketball tournament.
Right. They don't get an invite, men's or women's. They're sitting on the outside end. They have made some changes already, it looks like. So there are some things going on down there in the valley, but it won't be dancing.
Unfortunate, yeah.
They better TikTok. They better get some TikTok in.
Devil by the moonlight. They might be dancing on somebody's grave, but that's about it. They do have some big games this weekend, which will be crucial in terms of where folks will finish the season. So they do have a chance to literally dance on somebody else's grave when I say that in literal terms, in terms of dancing by the devil's moonlight. They do have that opportunity to ruin for somebody. So we'll see. Can they sneak it in and maybe get that twisted? But let's go back and let's talk about some of these teams that already have officially cut down nets for championships. Let me start with you, Professor Bishop. Who do you want to talk about in terms of getting it done, in terms of cutting down those nets?
Fayetteville State, hey, they got it done this past weekend. Great job, Fayetteville State, exercising those Virginia Union Demons.
Yeah, they got it done in a lot of ways in terms of that 65-62 victory in the 2022 CIAA Men's Basketball Championship in Baltimore. All those folks were scared, for lack of a better word, petrified about what was going on in Baltimore. But from every indication, things went really well in Baltimore, and people were pleasantly surprised, and others were quite happy in terms of the turnout, in terms of the atmosphere, things to do, the welcome party. More than anything, people were excited about being in a city that really looked forward to having them and welcome back. And remember, this is a CIAA, much like the SIAC, that did not have an official season last year due to COVID. So, after a 2-year hiatus, if you would, to find a way just to be around people, as President Abdullah said from Virginia State University, he was just excited the fact that he could be around some people that were celebrating the same thing he wanted. So I can imagine that's great. Let me go to you, Professor Drew. What's on your mind? You're going to go the other way in terms of the CIAA?
No, actually, I want to hit two of them. Number one, hope that you guys caught our BCSN Sports Rap show on Sunday, as we had 3 winning coaches on Sunday. Coach Ansar Alameen from
that was beautiful. I did see it.
Florida Memorial.
And let me jump in here while you talk about Alameen, because I wanted to jump in there. I was trying to get to him, but when you reach back out, I know there's a chance you may interview him as they look at seeds in the tournament. Tell him Dr. Ville from Texas Southern said hello, because he was over here at Texas Southern as an assistant coach before he went down there and cut down the nets and win the championship. Well, that was a mouthful game, 118 to 115. But tell us a little more about that.
But yeah, like I said, I hope you guys caught that, because we had Coach Alameen on from.
Oh, it was great. Great show. For those that haven't caught it,
yes,
as Drew is alluding to, go check out BCSN Rap, Sports Rap from this past Sunday. They had coaches on there, and they did a great job in terms of really getting into the spirit of them cutting down those nets. Proceed.
Yeah. Janice Washington from Lincoln PA Women, and Coach Eric Jackson Jr., who was just off of his championship a couple of hours beforehand from Russ College. We did send the invitation out to Adrian Ferguson of Fayetteville State, like Charles mentioned, but he was unable to join us. He did respond. His schedule did not permit for him to join. So we did attempt to get Fayetteville State on, everybody. And unfortunately, just because of the timing of the show, we were unable to get Tougaloo's coach in. Coach, why am I drawing a blank right now? Barnes is the women's coach. Help me out, Charles. Tougaloo's men's coach.
Oh, I'm drawing a blank myself, but
anyway, let me go back. Why do y'all Google that? I want to talk about the disappointment that I had on yesterday when Xavier's men and women lost. That's been my low light of the week. Xavier's women, the number 1 seed in the Red River Athletic Conference. Xavier men, the number 2 seed in the Red River Athletic Conference. Xavier's men losing by 1 point, and Xavier's women are losing by, I believe it was 10 points that they lost. So I'm gonna flip the script and go with my biggest disappointment thus far. I was really expecting both of those teams to get to the finals, as the Red River is a 2-bid league. Let's hope that Xavier still has a good enough resume to get in that large bid, which I think they do.
Coach Thomas Billups.
Yeah, Billups. I was thinking Barnes.
It's going to be
he's the women's
fascinating it's going to be fascinating in a lot of ways to see if they're able to get that bid in terms of the tournament. We'll keep eyes on that, particularly keep your eyes on Sports Rap, because they will let you know first Sunday, as they'll be able to give you some updates during their show in terms of what's going on there. I'm going to go back to you, Professor Bishop, and let you toot your home a little more about the Russ College in terms of the championship run.
Shout out!
Make sure that you get your kudos.
Yeah, right. Oh, Russ College Bearcats. They got it done.
Right.
Exactly. Got to give a shout out to Russ College. I know she's watching. I know she was happy to see her Russ College Bearcats get that championship there.
Yeah, a lot of good things going on there, and as Professor Drew talked about, breaking it down in a lot of ways. I want to clinch the regular season championship. That's over in the SWAC on the women's side. Getting it done, still undefeated. They had everybody, Texas Southern folks. You had Gary Cooper, wanted to make sure that text me, wanted to make sure in terms of Charles, wanted to see what you were going to say on the show about that last shot. I said, well, he already told me that. He was like, ooh, they swallowed this. Thank you. He's not even Catholic, but I think we get the Catholic.
I know, exactly. I tell you what, that was a heart stopper at the end. But yeah, I looked around. I paused for a second because I was listening for the whistle, looking for the ref to have his arm up or something. But you swallow the whistle at the end of the game, and I'll take the swallowed whistle.
Yeah.
Did you offer him a Coke, Charles, to go down to wash your whistle down with?
Probably something more with the Coke. So.
Oh, good. Shout out to Norfolk State as well on the men's side. As they have won a regular season championship, defeating Norfolk State. That was a game behind at that time. So it's fascinating they get it done. So interesting, but it's going to go down to the last couple of games on the men's side. Not in terms of potentially the championship, although Alcorn State really set themselves up well in terms of that first place matchup between Texas Southern on the men's side, essentially what it was on Monday. They got it done on the road. And all they got to do is finish up strong at home. We talked about Valley, Pine Bluff. That's where it is. You expect them to get it done, but that is a rivalry.
Yeah.
So, those things get a little different. You got the new coach coming in, George Ivory, that has now at least a week to kind of prepare his team. What does that mean? Is he going to get it? Being able to get in and install some of his famous defensive style he likes to play, that zone that troubles everybody over the years. Will he try to get that in? I don't know. See, he necessarily has enough time to do that, but that's one that I kind of keep my eyes on just to see. But credit to Bussy, assistant coach at Prairie View. He finds a way to get it done. Comes back to Texas, and then on the last second shot, half-court shot, literally the point guard down there shot. The shot, if you pay attention to Prairie View A&M University in Texas, they have the Texas State map on the center of the court. And as you go across the court, just as you get to half, the Texas part where he shot at, I'm going to see how many folks know their Texas map. The Big Bend part? Yeah, that's where he shot it from. That's where he shot it from. Being real descriptive there for all those that may not know. Go look on the map and you'll be like, ooh, wow. Yeah, he did that. With that being said, that was interesting. Then on the women's side, in terms of the MEAC, it should be interesting too. So that'll do it. We'll take a little break and get back into it. Before we do that, I'd be remiss. Everybody's heard about it now. It's not really that big news in terms of everything, just because folks have chopped it up and still continue to chop it up. But Art Briles resigns within himself from Grambling State, had a statement out there quoting saying, "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be part of your coaching staff at Grambling State University," end quote. Briles continued, quote, "Unfortunately, I feel that my continued presence will be a distraction to you and your team, which is the last thing that I want. Have the utmost respect for the university and your players," end quote. Although I may have had a lot of things, a direction that I personally would have did, I looked at it more consultant. But with all these things to go in, it did touch a little bit right there. But way of the world these days in terms of for all those young coaches out there that are getting in this business, it's important to understand that you have to make sure that you go above and beyond in terms of getting things done, because you can see how it can travel with you over your career if there is such thing as a lesson being learned by this. Be interesting to see how this will proceed. With that, let's get into our first break. We'll be right back on the other side, and it's time to get a poll ranking. Where is the top five? There's some teams dropping out, teams jumping in, both on the men's and women's side. We'll let you know who's number one. Any changes there? Maybe not so much, but we'll let you know what that looks like. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network. Tell everybody they can follow their
dreams. Oh, that spin class was brutal. Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat. Oh, yeah, that's nice. Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on? Sure. It's wireless. Pick something we all like. Okay, hold on. What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password? Buick Envision 2021. Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable. That's a really tight spot. Don't worry. I used to hate parallel parking. Me too. Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you, all of you.
The top HBCU programs in the nation come to Montgomery, Alabama's Riverwalk Stadium this May 11th through 14th for the Black College World Series. The best Black college baseball teams in the NCAA Division II and the NAIA will battle for Black baseball's ultimate prize. Games will be streamed live at www.mybcsn.net. Tickets are available now online at www.blackcollegechampionships.com.
Let's get back to getting ticks instead of watching flicks. Before we can safely get out there, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your crew.
Troy, you work here? I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield, never not working.
Press the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Ville with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. On the show today is guesting in that visiting professor, we're gonna have to move him over to, tenure track clinical professor or something. Professor Drew putting in this extra work. We appreciate it. I do want to give a shout out quickly to another young gun. Renaud Dido has really treated me well when I went up and visited the MEAC up there. He was named just yesterday the new athletic director at Alcorn State, his alma mater. So welcome back to the SWEC. Welcome home, as they would say. They're certainly going to miss him in the MEAC. He's putting in a lot of work and a lot of time up there, but great opportunity for him, and I hope he does well. Man, the changing of the guard over the last couple of years in terms of these assistants that have moved up and now they get a chance to lead their own program. It's going to be fascinating what that means for the SWAC. I think it'll do well in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, shout out to
keep our eyes on that.
Shout out to Wiggins, Mississippi, right now.
I like that.
Yeah.
Mississippi map on. I see Charles showing out a little bit there. Don't hurt us. With that being said, let's get into week number 9. Let's get into week number 9 in terms of the women's top 10. As I said, a couple of teams dropping out this week. Dropping out of the polls was Coppin State Eagles and Alabama State Hornets on the women's side. They dropped out. But let me formally tell you what's going on here, as we do have some teams receiving votes. You have Coppin State Eagles that I told you dropped out. They're still receiving votes, 15-11 and 9-4 after a tough weekend, as well as Southern Jaguars, 13-14, 11-5, 17 points. Alabama State Hornets lost just one game, but it's tough in there. They lost to their rival on the road there, 12-13, 11-5. This is after they were rolling a bit, but stubbed the toe. 24 points. It's hard to get in the top 5. It's hard to get in the top 5 because you have Texas Southern Tigers, 11-13, 11-6, probably one of the hottest teams, and they went to the wire, literally with Jackson State, as we talked about earlier. But just telling you how tough it is to get in the top 5. They win that game against Jackson State, literally last shot, maybe a field goal here and there. They might have got that victory. I'm sure they would have been in the top 5. I'm not sure what that would have did with the number 1 team, but I'm sure you'd have lost some points. Would have been interesting in terms of what that would have done with number 2, maybe. But now Texas Southern, as it would be in terms of that game being in history books, they are just outside of the top 5 at number 29. As I said, dropped out with Coppin State Eagles, Alabama State Hornets. Let's get into the top 5. Norfolk State Spartan, 14-10 and 10-3, had a great week winning the games there. They were not ranked, and they jumped in the top 5 at number 5. with 54 points. You have Alabama A&M Bulldogs. They're streaking, 13-13, 11-5, I should say, playing some really good basketball. At 69 points, they were not ranked, but they're into the top 5, as you would say. At number 3, Morgan State Bears, steady as the race goes. They move up a spot, 16-7, 10-3. Can they find a way to get in that top spot? Big game this Thursday. At least see if they can make some noise there. They're at 82 points, previous rank 4, as I said. Bring us to number 2, Howard Bison, solid. 17-8, 11-2. 85 points. They remain at number 2, just pushing Jackson State Tigers. They had a scare, but hey, that's what it is. They got the W, which means they are undefeated in SWAC play this year, which moves on from what they did last year. So they just continue to get it done 9 consecutive weeks at number 1. Just the constant in terms of what they get done. 100 points, improved to 18-6, 16-0. Depending on what they're able to do this last weekend before they get in the tournament, they may have 20 wins. That's very impressive in terms of any team at any level when you can get to the 20-win mark. With that being said, Jackson State Lady Tigers get it done, number 1 for week number 9. Charles, what are your thoughts on Jackson State Tigers?
I have to say, I'm tremendously impressed. I mean, they literally this past weekend, they took Texas Southern's best punch. I thought they took Prairie View's best punch. Texas Southern had a 32-point quarter against Jackson State. That's just something we don't see against Jackson State because they play such great defense. They're not only the top scoring team in the SWAC, but they're also the number 1 defense in the SWAC. But I tell you what, they took Texas Southern's best blow with Ty Bridges and Adriana Aben. Both of those young ladies would get scorching hot. And then Monday night, Prairie View had a first quarter. They couldn't miss a 3-pointer. But in both games, Jackson State was able to show resilience. They were able to keep their wits about them. And, you know, when it was time to get a bucket, they went and found a bucket. Amisha Williams-Holiday is, a load in the middle. I mean, she's as unstoppable as anyone that I've seen in the SWAC over the past few years, because when Jackson State absolutely has to get a bucket, she can get a bucket for Jackson State. So I take my hats off to them. I mean, they really were resilient this weekend, and they fought back from some adversity, and they were able to get the W's.
Professor Drew, talk about Howard and Morgan State, the top 5. Any questions you have with the top 5? Those teams jumping into the top 5. You have literally 3 MEAC teams in the top 5, although you had Jackson State at number 1.
Yeah. Well, compared to the BCSN poll rankings, we had 4 to 5. We were in agreement. We had Coppin State in and Norfolk out. You had the exact opposite of us. But when you talk about those 3 MEAC teams, those 4 MEAC teams, actually, Dr. Cavill, we're almost splitting hairs with those MEAC teams because all of their losses are to each other, you know, and it's gonna be real interesting when they battle. You know, the semifinal might be tougher than the final for these teams because they're gonna beat up on each other so much in the semifinal. It's just gonna be a matter of who's healthiest come the finals. But going back to Jackson State. You think Jackson State may have had their Rocky II moment in that Texas Southern game where both of them knocked each other out, both of them were down on the canvas, and they just got up right before the bell, i.e. that last second shot? Hopefully that Rocky II moment does not turn into a Rocky III moment when they lose at the wrong time.
Well, I'll say this. I talked to Coach Reed after the Prairie View game, and she was so impressed with this team, especially the way that they fought back this weekend. I mean, like I said, it was 2 really, really gritty performers from Texas Southern and Prairie View. And in a way, I think she's real happy that they got tested the way they did because it's going to pay off going into the tournament.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's always good to get tested anytime, especially when you can find a way to get the W. I think a little credit needs to go to Texas Southern University. If you've watched them, while they not very deep on the bench, 7, 8, depending on what they're able to roll out there. But all year long, they've showed you they've been able to score. Some of the problems you have at times is the fact they may not necessarily get good stops on the defensive side, but offensively they can score. So matchups make fight. So sometimes it's not always about a team in terms of what they're not doing. Oftentimes it's about the opposing team and what they're able to do well. Credit to a championship level team when they're able to adjust and do enough to get the W. And so I think those are some ways to look at it too, that sometimes we get into the motion that when a team is really doing well, Jackson State, you start trying to look at what they did wrong versus saying what is another opponent doing right. In that case, I think Texas Southern has been able to show that they've been able to score all year long. And they did it in that game, which made it interesting. When you go back in terms of the MEAC, you said you have Howard at 11-2, Morgan State at 10-3, Norfolk State at 10-3, College State at 9-4. We'll get into some of those matchups because this is a big one to watch on Thursday because those top 4 teams play each other. So they're interesting in terms of who close out, particularly Howard, Norfolk State, to see if this thing can get more interesting or can Howard be able to check the box and get that championship. So let's get into the men's side. Close out this hour here if you would.
Right before we get to the men's side, Hampton was on a huge run here in the third quarter, 15-4 run. They're now up on top of Radford here in the first round of the Big South tournament. 37-35.
Really great update. Tournament time. I told you some people dancing, don't want to go home. We'll see if the Hampton Lady Pirates find a way to push the envelope and continue to push forward to get it done. Receiving votes this week in terms of the men's side, week number 9. You have FAMU, Florida A&M Rattlers, 12-6, 10-7, 16 points. Had a tough weekend in Louisiana, losing both games. Played close in both games, but couldn't find a way to get a W on the road. Alabama A&M got the big win over Alabama State, 10-6, 9-7. Sneaky as they continue to rise up and playing pretty well right now. Probably one of the hottest teams in terms of their streak, 3 or 4 straight, if you would. South Carolina State Bulldogs. They dropped a pair. Tough weekend for them, 15-14, 7-6, staring things right in the face. They were right at the ship, but when it came a chance to really make a statement, we're not able to do it. Also a team that's struggling after getting that big win over Norfolk State on that Monday night ESPNU game is North Carolina Central Eagles. They had another shot at Norfolk State just a game back, couldn't get it done. So now they're lost 3 straight games. They're sitting outside of the top 10, top 5, which means we got a new team in the top 5. Couple of teams dropped, meaning number 5, Texas Southern Tigers, 13-11, 11-4. They dropped 1 spot from number 5. This is the second time on a Monday night that they had a chance to really put themselves at the number 1 spot. Last week was 2 weeks ago, I should say, it was Southern. This week was Alcorn State. They may have cost themselves a championship. I guess a better way is to say it is Alcorn State actually stepped up and maybe brought themselves a championship. And number 4, Southern Jaguars, 16-12, 11-5. This is the team themselves. They got that win against Texas Southern. They go home. Guess what? They lost 2 out of 3, including 2 straight at home. Boy, that's tough. 16-12, 11-5, 61. You talking about a team that could have had their own chance at a championship. They still have it in reach, but now they're waiting for other folks to take care of themselves. They drop a spot from number 3. Bring us number 3, Howard Bison, one of the hottest teams out there, 16-11, 9-4. They jump in the top 5. They were just outside. Well, they're on a run right now, playing some good basketball, winning 3-4 straight, if you would. Number 2, Alcorn State Braves. They vault up as they get it done. 13-5, 12-4. 2 first-place votes is what they've gotten for themselves, moving up 1 vote. They remain at their 2 spot, but they solidify 83. They went out. They have a SWAC championship. What do you say about Coach Bussey coming over from Prairie View? Didn't take him very long, did it?
Didn't take him very long at all.
No. Norfolk State Spartans, 20-6. Yes, 20. I said 20 wins. 11-2 overall. 8 first-place votes, 98 points. Number 1, the Spartans just continue what they do as they're in the middle of this championship run. Boy, dynasty they are, I would say. Can they get it done in the tournament? They're playing really well, pretty good basketball. Boy, I'd love to see that Texas Southern Norfolk State rivalry in terms of MEAC SWAC right now. Be interesting. With that being said, we're going to go into this break and come back and then get your thoughts on the top 5 poll rankings, if you would, of what that looks like. No, I was just going to tease you a little bit. Stick with it. Professor Drew, what are your thoughts on the top 5 poll rankings?
Well, going back, I always compare yours to the BCSN computer rankings.
I like that. Let me know just how much a genius I am.
Well, of course, the one major difference is our rankings are Sunday. Yours come out after Monday game, so there may be something off based on.
I told you I was green. I do it on purpose. See?
but number two, we have the same 5 teams in, the same team just outside looking in, North Carolina Central. But our order was much different on Sunday than yours is on Tuesday. BCSN had Howard at 5, Southern at 4, Alcorn at 3, Texas Southern at 2, and Norfolk at 1. Like I said, this was before Monday.
That makes sense because you had Southern barely get the win, but you had Texas Southern loss, a big win by Alcorn, and Howard got another big win. So makes sense.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I like it, and I'm still leaning on the MEAC thing. You know, you don't want to see Prairie View and Jackson State get into the SWAC tournament, and you don't want to be their first round opponent, whoever it is, as a higher rated team, because those 2 teams will be scary in the SWAC tournament. What's
going to be interesting? I got to tease it. I'm going to tell you about Prairie View. They got some big games coming up this weekend to make sure they can get it done. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the fourth quarter. But before we do that, Charles, what do you think of my man's top 5?
I think it's right on point. Norfolk State, the wheels on the bus just keep going round and round. They keep getting it done week in, week out. No team right now hotter than Howard. But I have to take my hats off to Alcorn. I mean, I said going into this weekend, this was going to be a huge weekend for the Alcorn State basketball program. I would have been good with a split, but they come away from the Texas two-step 2-0. And again, Monday night proves to be the downfall for the Texas Southern basketball team. They had another opportunity to solidify themselves on that Monday night game. A couple weeks ago, it was Southern was able to sneak into the H&PE, get a W. This time it was Alcorn. So we'll see, how that plays out with regards to the seeding and things of that nature. But I tell you what, going into the tournament next week, both on the MEAC side and the SWAC, it's hard to call. It really is. I love the parity in both leagues because I think at any point a team can just knock out a higher seed.
Yeah, especially in terms of the men for the SWAC and the MEAC, the women on that side. It's going to be fascinating to watch in that tournament. You might sneak in and see some things happen on the alternative as well. With that being said, let's get into this break. We'll get back after halftime for the third quarter. Drew, take it away.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
The top HBCU programs in the nation come to Montgomery, Alabama's Riverwalk Stadium this May 11th through 14th for the Black College World Series. The best Black college baseball teams in the NCAA Division II and the NAIA will battle for Black baseball's ultimate pride. Games will be streamed live at www.mybcsn.net. Tickets are available now online at www.blackcollegechampionships.com.
Itchy, squirmy, scratchy, family not getting clean? Get Charmin Ultra Strong. Go get 'em. It just cleans better. With a diamond weave texture, your family can use less while still getting clean.
Goodbye, itchy squirm.
Hello, cream bottom. We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
It's like a loop
machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Quarterback Doug Flutie threw a last-second Hail Mary pass that defeated Miami. It was such an image-changing event. The following school year, student applications at Boston College increased significantly, and it was dubbed the Flutie effect. Now there's another move afoot on some college campuses, but it's not a college athlete making the difference, but a college head coach. Deion Sanders. After being named as Jackson State's head football coach in September of 2020, HBCU schools are feeling the Coach Prime effect.
Definitely, I think he has raised the profile of not just Jackson State, but HBCUs in general.
According to Jackson State University, since Deion Sanders became the school's head football coach, the athletic department has generated $185 million worth of advertising and exposure.
And HBCUs in general get some of that Coach Prime effect rollover, if you would, in terms of the interest. And that interest, as you know, is phenomenal and a game changer.
And high school athletes like Austin LBJ quarterback Oscar Gordon are taking note.
This is Dr. Ville inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Yes, visiting professor, clinical professor, I should say, is Professor Drew. You see Professor Bishop in there. Dr. Moral student at Texas Southern University getting a chance to grab the mic. Great job there, Charles.
I appreciate that, Doc.
I see you stuck in the shirt, Dr. Ville. I like it, man.
I did.
You've learned a lot. You get an A+.
Debut. Exactly.
A+, man. I grade you A+. Seriously, that's on Extra Point. You can go to Extra Point YouTube if you want to see the rest of the video. It's the Coach Prime effect. It's a term that I utilized and came up with, if you would. It's based on the Flutie effect, as they talked about, the Hail Mary for Boston College as they defeated Miami in the big bowl game down there. And you saw, as they said, also the applications. Well, the interest in terms of the SWAC and other HBCUs is increased. And in fact, I think, Professor Bishop, you may have your dissertation concept that you're going to look at there. So I just wanted to give a shout out, tease that a little bit, but shout out to Matt Musil of KHOU for giving us the opportunity to provide some glimpse of that. And shout out to him. And that, again, you can go to Extra Point YouTube and you get the entire video. Great comments in there. Have Commissioner on there saying some different comments as well. So fascinating in terms of what that brings. So I wanted to share that with you. Let me know your thoughts in there in terms of how we got it going on. Yeah, I told you this one. I see some comments. I see them flying out there. Appreciate you. Let's get back into it a little bit. We got some matchups going on right now, tournaments going on right now. We got the SIAC. Charles is giving you some updates in terms of the Big South. Let's get into that a little bit, starting with you, Drew, HBCU Framework, SIAC. Couple of games have been played. Any upsets at this point? I always, want to know Cinderella, anyone to keep the dancing shoes on? Or is things going to chalk thus far?
On the men's side, it's all chalk with the higher seed winning all the games on the men's side. But the women have had a couple of upsets. Going over those upsets on the women's side, number 5 East Fort Valley beat number 4 Lemoyne Owen 48-45. That was on yesterday. And also number 5 Kentucky State beat number 4 Clark 78-68 on yesterday. So the two number 5 seeds won on yesterday in their respective out of their respective sides. And that is it thus far as the upsets on the women's side. But both women's games yesterday were upsets. Today, it has gone to chalk thus far with Albany State winning 59-50 over Central State. Going over some of those men's scores quickly. Yesterday, number 6 West Clark defeated number 7 West Central State 79-64. Number 4, East Fort Valley defeated number 5 West Kentucky State 73-53, and number 4 West Spring Hill defeated number 5 Albany State, number 5 East Albany State 75-66. And earlier today on the men's side, number 3 West Lemoyne defeated Clark Atlanta 80-74. Clark was originally number 6, so they were 2 games in 2 days for Clark. And Savannah State not too long ago defeated Lane. That score was the Savannah State was number 3 in the East. Lane was number 5 in the West. They defeated Lane 60-50. And the game that's going on right now as we speak is the final game of the day in Rock Hill, South Carolina, with number 3 West in the West, Miles versus number 7 in the West, Spring Hill, and that is on the women's side.
Should be fascinating to continue. We'll give you updates as we get closer to when you cut down the nets on Thursday. We'll give you some updates what that looks like.
The game is going to be when Tuskegee, Benedict, Savannah, when 2 of those 3 teams cross, that's when it's going to get fun in the tournament.
No doubt. Great point. That should be coming up Thursday around that time. You should get some updates there. Charles, I know you got some updates in terms of a game that's playing now with Hampton. You got any update on that?
Yeah, they are at the 5-minute TV time out here. Hampton is up on top of Radford 45-43. Radford came into this game 7-22, 3-15 in the Big South, whereas Hampton 12-15, 8-9 in the Big South. So Hampton is the higher seed, but they are in a good old-fashioned Donnybrook. They are in the first round with Radford.
I like that. Staying with the women OVC, you have the game tomorrow, which is Tennessee State facing Eastern Illinois. That is the OVC championship, what they call the first round. Top seeds get a double bye. The other seeds get to bye. That starts tomorrow. But as we look at it on the men's side, a little more, let's look in terms of the OVC. Tennessee State gets into the tournament, and they will face off also tomorrow at 6:30 on the men's side. They face Southern Illinois, East Evansville, I should say. So that'll be interesting in that. Evansville comes in at 11-20, while Tennessee State is 13-17 overall. In terms of the Big South, you got a chance to look at Hampton against High Point tomorrow, Wednesday at 5 o'clock, and you have North Carolina A&T Radford also tomorrow. That's the early game. You got to wake up and get your coffee to watch that one, 10:30, in terms of what that looks like. Last thing I did want to give a shout out to A&T in terms of the Big South is they are in the tournament as well. They play at 7 o'clock tonight. After this Hampton Radford game, it is UNC Asheville against North Carolina A&T. Asheville comes in just at 8-21. A&T Lady Aggies are 14-14. That game will be on ESPN Plus. You will watch some Division I versus watching SIC at Division II. That to give you an update there. Let's take our last break and get ready for the fourth quarter, and we'll come back and talk a little bit about these final matchups. MEAC and SWAC should be fascinating because they're going to set up for the tournaments next week for the MEAC and SWAC tournament. Always a fun time. Obviously, you're in Norfolk if you're in the MEAC at the Scope, and then you're in Birmingham if you're talking about the SWAC. We'll get a chance to get into it a little more. Stick with us as we get into the fourth quarter. We'll be right back after this last break.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
You see, Head & Shoulders has scalp shield technology, protects against flakes, even between washes. It's never not working.
Kind of like us. Number 15?
Never not working.
I don't like this one.
Me neither.
Let's get out of here.
Head & Shoulders scalp shield, never not working.
The top HBCU programs in the nation come to Montgomery, Alabama's Riverwalk Stadium this May 11th through 4 teams for the Black College World Series. The best Black college baseball teams in the NCAA Division II and the NAIA will battle for Black baseball's ultimate prize. Games will be streamed live at www.mybcsn.net. Tickets are available now online at www.blackcollegechampionships.com.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Phil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Boy, that's funny. Anthony Weston said Alabama A&M's found out that he has Great Danes, great Greyhounds instead of not Great Danes, letting them run over there in Alabama A&M. They are playing some good basketball right now. Mike puts it in there as well and said, hey, my Jaguars, and I think he's talking about men's and women's, are not playing very well, particularly the men's, in terms of this time of the year. Yeah. You're right, not a good time when you want to fall on that side. But let's go to the women. Chivalry is not dead, as you know I like to say. Starting with the MEAC. Big game Thursday, close out the season. You have South Carolina State at North Carolina Central. Both teams at the bottom of the conference. Somebody gets a chance to get that nudge, at least to stay out of the basement, if you would, outside of Delaware State that is just looking for their first win. They have lost 22 straight. It's been a tough season in terms of Delaware State on the ladies' side. They just can't get a win. This is their last chance to do it. Other than the tournament, they will get in there because they'll take all 8 teams. But with that being said, North Carolina Central is 2-11 versus South Carolina State at 4-9 overall. Respectively in the conference. But matchups also the big one. Howard at Norfolk State should be fun. 17-8, 14-10. Delaware State, North Maryland, Eastern Shore. Morgan State and Coppin State. When you talk about Howard and Norfolk State, that could be for a championship. Basically, if you're Howard, you win it. You don't have to worry about anything. You lose it, you're going to at least have to share it. So it'll be Norfolk State wants to get a piece of it. They got to get it on the court. Morgan State would love to do that as well, but they got to face Coppin State there in-city rival, I should say. You're talking about crosstown rival in a lot of ways. Coppin State and Morgan State should be fascinating there. Morgan State needs to get the W if they want to at least have a chance at the share of it. Coppin State says not so fast. We want to muck it up a little bit. Let me go to you, Professor Drew. What are your thoughts in terms of closing out the season on the women's side?
Man, somebody need to pay the schedule maker in the BIAC a bonus. How fitting that you have the top 4 on the women's side playing each other for for seeding. How we could finish 1, how we could finish 3. Coppin could finish 4, Coppin could finish 2. Morgan at Norfolk could finish 1 to 4. This is and they all play each other. You don't have to sit there and scoreboard watch per se. Right. You're playing each other. So shout out to the schedule makers for getting it right for a change. And then with the other games, even though they are, I wouldn't necessarily consider them dud games, but these teams playing for pride, trying to knock other teams off. Those bottom 4 teams can't really move up or down based on this win or loss, but they're playing to get momentum going into this tournament. So shout out to the schedule makers for getting it right in the MEAC. And I've got to say that, wouldn't it be so MEAC-ish if we have like a 3-way tie for first place.
You would have to bring that up, wouldn't you?
That's my word, Miyakish. Because we could have it. It can happen.
That's what I said. It would.
That's awfully Miyaki. Yeah.
With that, Charles, go ahead and jump in here. What are your thoughts in terms on the women's side of the MEAC? You think Howard is going to get it done?
I mean, this is that Iron Man stretch of the season for both the MEAC and the SWAC. You got 4 games in a week here. When you take a look at Saturday, Monday, then come back Thursday, Saturday. But looking forward to Norfolk State and Howard on both the men's and the women's side. You're talking about on the women's side, Camille Downs and Ajane Hutton, both great scores for Camille Downs for Norfolk State, Ajane Hutton for Howard. And then on the men's side, I mean, it doesn't get any better than Joe Bryan and Kyle Foster. Joe Bryan for Norfolk State and Kyle Foster for Howard. You're talking about a Howard team that lost at home to Norfolk State. They'll be looking to try to get a little get back and kind of blooded nose of Norfolk State a little bit before the tournament starts next week.
Yeah, so let's jump over and stay with the women, but let's go to the SWAC. Yeah, 4 games on Thursday. Grambling, Alabama A&M, Southern Alabama State, Arkansas Pine Bluff at Jackson State, Mississippi Valley State at Alcorn State, the rival. That's going to be interesting at the bottom, but it'll be fascinating, a prelude of what may happen on the men's side, which will be a little more important. Obviously, these 4 teams flip and play on Saturday, which means you will have Arkansas Pine Bluff at Alcorn. Then you have Mississippi Valley State at Jackson State. Will Jackson State get a chance to close out the regular season undefeated against in-state rival? We shall see. You have Grambling at Alabama State, Southern at Alabama A&M, and then throw in the fact that you have 2 rivalry matchups. Bethune-Cookman at FAMU and Prairie View at Texas Southern. Should be good matchups in terms of rivalry games. Interesting to close out the season on many of these rivalry notes when you talk about Mississippi Valley State at Jackson, Bethune-Cookman at FAMU, Prairie View at Texas Southern. Kind of like that in terms of what's going on there. Charles, what do you say about the SWAC in terms of closing out the season? Obvious foregone conclusion that Jackson State will get it done, but the other teams are fighting for some seeding in the tournament. And when you talk about that second seed, it's up for the grab when you have Alabama State at 11-5, Alabama A&M at 11-5, Southern at 11-5, Texas Southern at 11-6.
Huge games Thursday. You're talking about 3 11-5 teams: Alabama A&M, Alabama State, and Southern. Obviously, the Southern Alabama State game, both teams come in at 11-5, paying close attention to that. But Alabama A&M, they are playing some great basketball right now. They've gotten hot at the right time. Grambling is always a team that you got to keep an eye out for. Alexis Hope, she can take over games for the Grambling Lady Tigers. So looking forward to these matchups on Thursday because, like I said, that seeding can change somewhere in there.
Right. And to you, Professor Drew, we know the top 8 teams that will be in the tournament because FAMU at 4-13 in the conference race is out. Bethune-Cookman Lady Pirates 4-13, they're out. Obviously, the rivalry game is big. You had that last-second shot. The FAMU got it done in Bethune-Cookman, so you might have a little payback on the mind. One of those teams wants to close out at least with a win, especially if they can get it done against the rival. But you also know that Mississippi Valley State and Alcorn State, they're out. 2-14, 2-14. Interesting, same thing. In-state rivals, one of those teams will get a win to close out the season, so it'll be fascinating to see what that looks like. But which direction do you want to go in terms of the rest of the games in the SWAC in terms of that final 2 or 1 sets of games this week?
You know, you're in the know in the SWAC office, Dr. Gavir. You know a lot of people in that SWAC office. I'm just curious to know who's in charge of the vice president in charge of determining tiebreakers, because between the women's and the men's, whoever that person is, they're gonna have fun. I hope they got a good computer, they got their iPad, they got their calculator, because you are going to need it. Because I'm looking at this mathematically on the women's side, we're gonna stick with the women. You could have 5 teams that finish 11-7. And now you got to go through all these tiebreakers. And how many times, or how would it be, those teams that only played once against each other, will that determine a higher seed who won that one lone matchup? this year. So, that's going to be interesting. Now let's flip this. We got teams that if they take care of business, if everybody takes care of business, you're going to have about 3 teams tied with the same record for that number 2 spot. So it's really going to be interesting. And I'm really curious to see how deep they have to go down into some of these tiebreakers to actually say this team is 2, this team is 3, this team is 4 on down the line. Are we going to the 3rd tiebreaker? Are we going to the 4th tiebreaker? Do we need to go to the bank and get us a shiny new quarter? What is going to determine who plays who?
Yeah, that would be none other than Mr. Andrew Roberts, Assistant Commissioner of Communications. He will put out the information in terms of tiebreaker. I'm not even sure if he has time to put all the scenarios together, but I can tell you this, that I've known and dealt with the SWAC long enough, and really this is similar to any conference. As you know, the first tiebreaker is head-to-head, which, as you mentioned, is going to be fascinating because in the expanded version of the SWAC, you have some teams that have just played a team one time. Right. So there was no opportunity to avenge a loss if you had it. So it'll be an advantage to somebody in terms of tiebreaker. If those 2 teams just played once, it's going to be easy, which you don't have to worry about the second tiebreaker, which is point differential.
Right. What about 3-way ties?
3-way ties.
That's what you're gonna have. 2 teams may have played head to head. One team have only played once against somebody. That's what I really want to see how it comes down to.
They just do it on ascending order. What is the record against the other teams in ascending order? And then you go back. The next tiebreaker is what is your record against the top teams in the conference? Yeah. So it's pretty set up and it's pretty straightforward. So it's not going to really matter in regards to whether you played a team twice or you played them once, because you're just going to look at overall record in that. So it could be 2-1 or it could be 1-0. Which one is better? Winning percentage is going to get the bid. But again, it goes back still to your overall point, is the fact that sometimes you would have a chance to avenge a loss or double down and get a sweep. In some cases, you're not going to have that this year. And I think that's going to be fascinating to see who may get a little advantage in terms of seeding. And what it means in the tournament, although a team may have a better seeding, their strength, if you want to look at it after the end of the season, their strength of record may not be identical to another team in terms of what they ultimately finish based if you look at who they played in the conference. Let's get into the MEAC so we can close it out. Another intriguing weekend in terms of closing out the MEAC in terms of some teams. You have South Carolina State and North Carolina Central, Howard and Norfolk State, Morgan State and Coppin State, Delaware State and Maryland Eastern Shore. When you talk about what does that mean, we already told you Norfolk State has clinched the regular season championship at 9-2, but you had Howard and North Carolina Central fighting for that second seed, if you would, 94-75. Don't count out South Carolina State Bulldogs at 7-6. And then you have going down to the rest of the division, you have some teams looking at where they're going to be seated. And the thing that you want to do is make sure you're not in that 2-3 seeding, so you can not see Norfolk State, if you would, until the championship game. You would think in a lot of ways they might have a bye, if you would, not, and realistically on paper, Delaware State is sitting at 0-13 in terms of the conference, 2-24 overall. They're looking for their first conference win, what that may look like, but then they go in the tournament, they're going to be matched up with Norfolk State. You don't think Norfolk State would have a problem there? So in a lot of ways, they essentially have a bye. I know that's ugly, but just saying what I'm saying. Right?
Just don't twist no ankles in that game.
Just so you know. Drew, go ahead.
I'll say, just if you know, folks say you just don't want to twist any ankles or pull any hamstrings in that game that you talk about, that pseudo bye game. But looking on Thursday night, Norfolk State Howard. Is this a conference championship preview matchup?
That's the one I'm looking forward to.
That's the first thing I want to look at. Yeah, that's the first thing. And then Central South Carolina State. South Carolina State has been surprisingly good, has slipped up under the radar for a lot of people this year. Central is still Central. They are a well-coached team. Coach Moton over there.
But they haven't been Central this year.
But it is
not in the regular season, but he has the ability over the last couple of years For some reason in the tournament, he turns it on. We'll see. Can he do it this year? To your point, Charles, he hasn't really did that. I know we're getting close on the time, so Charles, I want to get your thoughts on the MEAC as well, and then we'll go back to you, Drew, and look at the SWAC.
Yeah, I mean Thursday. That's what I'm looking forward to. Norfolk State versus Howard. Joe Bryan and Cal Foster getting on again. Like I said, Howard dropped that game against Norfolk State earlier in the year at home. Let's see, can they get it done on the road this week, this Thursday?
Getting into the SWAC, again, we have some teams that have 2 games, some teams that have 1 game. It's going to be fascinating to see, can Alcorn State close out the way they want to get that championship? It's sitting right on their lap. Can they hold out? We'll see. So you have Grambling at Alabama A&M, Arkansas Pine Jackson, Mississippi Valley State at Alcorn, Southern Alabama State. Not to be too redundant because we said this with the women, but obviously on Saturday you have Bethune-Cookman and FAMU, Arkansas Pine Bluff at Alcorn State, Prairie View, Texas Southern in terms of the rivalry game, Southern at Alabama A&M, Grambling at Alabama State, Mississippi Valley at Jackson State. Other than Mississippi Valley, you have teams that are fighting to see if they can get in there. Alabama State has a stronger way to go, but they're not out of it yet. Drew, you talked about Prairie View, the team that nobody wants to play, but check this out. Prairie View, with that last second loss to Alcorn State at the half court buzzer beater, I told you, where he literally tossed it from the Ben Park in terms of the state logo to dash away the dreams of Prairie View. They may be in a position where they have to win against Texas Southern at home to get in the tournament. Check this out. Jackson State is at 7-9. Bethune-Cookman is 7-10. You talked about this earlier in regards to the women. Bethune-Cookman just edged out Prairie View. Last second shot. They played 1 time. If both of them end up at 9-7, at 8-9, Bethune-Cookman would get the edge because of that head-to-head tiebreaker. Jackson State, they can go on a run. They win 2, they're in at 9-9. They just win 1, they're 8-9. Guess what? They beat Prairie View twice. They have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So it's going to get interesting in terms of this final weekend. And you'll know by the time the game, Prairie View and Texas Southern, that night game is played, you'll know if Prairie View, needs to win to get in the tournament. That's how intriguing it is this week in terms of what it may look like. Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, everybody's focused at the top, but yeah, I just was doing a little homework at the bottom. Drew, what are your thoughts on all that?
So you could potentially have Prairie View, Texas. We know we got Prairie View, Texas Southern Saturday night. Prairie View beats Texas Southern. You could potentially have the rematch for round 1 of the tournament. Correct. Because that would put Prairie View as the number 8 seed, and Texas Southern could possibly wind. Well, no, they wouldn't wind up as
you would need Prairie View to be a 7 seed, and you could get Texas Southern at the 2 seed. Yeah, you can mess around. Alcorn could lose, and Prairie View and Texas Southern win.
Alcorn would have to lose
12
twice.
and 6. Alcorn loses twice. I don't see that happen, but it could. 12 and 6. Then you go into the point you have there, though. Head-to-head tiebreak will still have Alcorn at the number 1 seed because they beat Texas Southern twice. So yeah, it's gonna be fascinating in terms of these matchups.
It's gonna be fun.
Theoretically, you could have Southern win, split this weekend. Then you have a 3-way tie, and it really could get interesting in terms of that. But I still believe Alcorn gets it done there because it's my understanding they beat Southern. That head-to-head, they only played once. So Alcorn State, with it all said, is in really good position.
Yeah, I was about to say we can all put it to bed if Alcorn takes care of business on Thursday.
Here's the one to watch. Here's the one to watch. Does Bethune beat FAMU to even make the conversation that we're having relevant? Because Bethune has to beat FAMU on Saturday.
That's the game. Yeah, that's the game.
If they don't beat FAMU, all this coulda, woulda, shoulda does not matter.
That's correct. Absolutely correct. That's the showdown. It is fascinating when you think about this, Charles. Expansion, right? On the men's side, it comes down to the two new expansion teams to see if one of the SWAC teams is getting in. Potentially it could be Prairie View or Jackson State. Think about this. The two teams that won the regular season last year
could be on the outside looking in.
Out of the tournament, depending on what the Florida schools do.
Another potential reason to keep Hayes in the Florida schools.
Oh, man. Let's get out of here. Great commentary. I hope everybody enjoyed it in terms of what's going on in the SWAC. It is SWAC madness when you got what's going on here. Fascinating in so many different ways. Let's keep it going. This is Dr. Khalil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Khalil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. Hope you enjoyed the little clip with Professor Bishop, doctoral student, getting it done, KCOH, Matt Yusuf, giving you some insight on the Coach Prime effect. Make sure you tell Coach Prime he shouted him out. And I coined it. Let him know I coined that term. And
we'll do
dissertation, Charles. We'll get that out there. Again, I want to thank you for listening to Dr. Mills Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday. So come back and check us out on Thursday. We'll give you some updates of what's going on in some of these conference basketball tournaments. We'll have hot and heavy. You'll have some SWAC games that'll be over by then, or at least closing out on the women's side. So it'll be fascinating heading into some of those men games. We'll keep you updated. We will look forward as we continue to talk about HBCU sports. Thanks, shout out to the lab listeners, giving us all the best business out there. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Kavil, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's Dr. KENYATTACAVIL. Again, that's Dr. KENYATTACAVIL on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Inside HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter. Facebook and YouTube is Inside HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Drew?
Of course.
Charles?
Lecture.
Dismiss.
We all